Good evening, I go by the name KWEKU, HUMALI, a student of BIT Group C. And I'm here to talk about how the primitive and reference data type are managed and accessed in memory in relation to Java. Without wasting my time, I would like to give a short explanation on what data type is. Data type are essential in programming, as they define how values are stored and manipulated in memory. In most programming language, data type falls into two categories, which is the primitive and the reference data type. I would like to talk about what the primitive data type is. Primitive data type. The primitive data type, another name people call this is the direct memory storage. The direct memory storage. This is because the data is stored directly in the memory. The primitive data type, these are the fundamental building blocks that store simple values directly in the memory. They hold simple values such as numbers, characters, and Boolean values. These primitive data types are grouped into 8 types, which is the integer values, and then under the integer values, you have the byte, short, int, and long. And all these also has a specified or specific storage space attached to it. As you can see on the screen, the byte has 8-bit integer, the short 16-bit integer, the int 32-bit integer, the long 64-bit integer. Let's move on to the floating point types. This is also another type of the primitive data type, and this comes in the float and the double. The float is used to store single precision floating points, and the double is used to store double precision floating points. The difference between these two is that the float has a shorter range of storing the floating points. When I talk of floating points, it's the decimal numbers, which is maybe 8.3, 8.5, and a whole lot. And also the double stores the same thing, but the range in which the double stores is larger than the float. Moving on to the character type. The character type is used to store single characters such as A, B, C, Z, and Y. And also we have the Boolean type. The Boolean type is used to store true or false value. The Boolean type doesn't really have a specified storage attached to it. Normally it has 1 bit, and also it can differ as time goes on, as you program. So these types have fixed sizes in memory, and the values are stored directly in memory, as I said earlier. And it also says more specifically in stack memory. When we talk of stack memory is like storing things in a vertical order. Let's say you have this mouse. When you have this mouse, you store the phone on it, you store another thing on it. So you are storing the things vertically, you are storing it in a stack form. Moving on to also, still on the stack memory, sorry. The primitive values are stored directly in stack memory, which is small, fast memory area used for managing method calls and variables. When we talk of immutable, meaning once this primitive data type is assigned, once you assign a value to it, it cannot be modified, it cannot be changed. So if you assign an integer variable with a value of 5, it will always hold a value unless reassigned. Now let me move on. Let me go straight to my Intel IJ and code something for you to see. And now we are on Intel IJ. Let's declare the class public class main. So public static void main. String args. Now we have our code of block. So let's declare some variables and assign some numbers to it. So int x equals 5. Oh, okay, 5. So with this, when you print it out, you get an output of 5. Let's try and assign another variable. Let's try and declare another variable. Sorry. So int y, and assign x to the variable y. So with something like this, we get a copy of the x. We get a copy of the 5 in the y. So let's try outputting it, which is the south. So let's output y, sorry. The runtime. So with this, when we output we will get 5. We had 5, yes. So this is because the value of x, which is 5, is copied to y. Think of the primitive data type like a notebook, your personal notebook that you've written things in it. You have a document in it. If you give a copy out to a friend, the friend still has a copy, but the original data type is in your notebook. So this is how the primitive data type is accessed in the memory. It copies this and gives it to another variable once you assign the value or the variable to the value. Now let's move on to the reference data type. So the reference data type. Another name people also call this is the indirect memory management. This is because they do not store data directly. Instead, they store the memory address or reference that point to the actual data. These data types stored are more complex. Examples are the arrays, objects, and lists. Memory management. How the reference data type manages the memory. When a reference variable is declared, the memory is allocated dynamically. Instead of storing the actual value, the variable holds the memory address where the data is stored. Now let me move on to the IntelliIJ and prove what I'm saying. So let's try and declare an array. So string name equals Kofi and Amma. Let's make it simple. Kofi and Amma. So with this, if we try printing out, let's try printing out Kofi using the index or the address. So south name or 0. Yes. So when we print this, we add Kofi. So the Kofi is stored in name. So here we have the name, and the name also contains a reference to the location where Kofi and Amma is stored in the memory, rather than storing Kofi and Amma directly in the variable. So with the reference data type, it stores data in a heap form. Think of the reference data type like a shared cloud, a cloud link that is shared. So when your documents are being shared via the cloud, people can access it, and any editing or changes that is being made will affect the data in the cloud. Thank you.